which is to establish requirement and restrictions for the installation and operation of alarm systems.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
What has to do with the house link? What has to do with-
I'm sorry, could you raise your hand? Okay, and
It
Thank
does, it does. So there are two public hearings tonight. This is on the alarm ordinance. The other one is on the property maintenance. We haven't gone to the property maintenance one yet. So the public hearing that we're having right now is with respect to the proposed ordinance, which would establish a process where if there were 2 or more false alarms in a year for a fire department, when a fire department has to respond to a false alarm, the first 2 false alarms, there is no charge. The third one, there will be a charge. So this proposed ordinance will establish that false alarm process and fee for those who have systems who are habitual false alarms within the township. It's my understanding that the township has had some issues with, not a lot, but some properties where the fire departments are responding to multiple false alarms in a calendar year, which obviously causes cost and expense for the fire department. So that is the public hearing. So with that, are there any questions or comments from the board at this time?
yes, ma'am.
I just have one question. When you say a year, are we talking a calendar year, which you just stated, or are we talking a rolling 12-month time period?
Calendar year.
Calendar year, thank you.
Let me make sure.
So we were stunned to find out that 1/3 of the calls that Marshalls Creek Fire Department goes on are false alarms.
Calendar year.
It's a lot of, I mean, suited up, trucks out and everything. So, and thank you. That brings me to a second point. If you're going to make a public comment or have a question, just so you could be heard, we have 2 microphones at the end of the table and microphone in the middle of the table. If you could just come to the podium, that would be great, because then everybody could hear what it is that you have to say. Now, there's a lot of people in the room and there's folks all the way towards the back. We do have a microphone out. So if the speaker is soft-spoken, we'll try that, but we've tested it and there's no feedback on everything. So we've made a motion, there's been a second. Are there any other comments or questions on the proposed alarm ordinance from anybody? Anybody on Zoom? No? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, so now that brings us to the proposed ordinance, which is regarding property maintenance. So first, I'd just like to start with a little bit of housekeeping. We've had 2 meetings where folks have given their comments on this ordinance. Now, the board cannot amend an ordinance from the floor. So what that means is we have the ordinance that's in front of us that we can discuss and take action on. So just to start with, the board has heard everyone at the last 2 meetings and has already started making amendments to the ordinance. But that will have to come with a whole new ordinance. So it is very likely that the board will vote on this ordinance to not pass it so that we can get to a revised ordinance that incorporates a lot of the comments that we have heard in the past. So we are going to give 60 minutes for comments tonight. There's a lot of folks here. If you've already made comment at the last 2 meetings, we would appreciate it if you would allow the folks who haven't made any comments or had any questions at all, first bite of the apple, okay? So I wanted to ask this question last time. For how many of you in this room, just a show of hands, how many of you, is this the first time that you've been to a Board of Supervisors meeting? Okay, welcome. For how many of you, is this the first time at the Township Building? Only one, two? All right, well, that's good. Well, then the board is happy and grateful to have this opportunity to meet you. So welcome. I'm glad for this ordinance now. Okay. Does the board have any comments to make before we begin? No? Pat, do you have anything you'd like to?
No, I think, like the chairwoman, indicated, there, to the extent, the board's not prepared to proceed with adopting the ordinance as amended, you'll be guided accordingly, depending upon what your motion is, this evening. To the extent we proceed with amendments based upon the comments from the last meeting and maybe some comments from this evening to continually, amend the ordinance, it'll be subject to another public hearing at some future date. But with that, I mean, unless the board is willing, or unless the board wants to entertain a motion at this point with respect to the pending ordinance that's been advertised this evening, it would be appropriate, I guess, to hold a public hearing to hear any comments from the public this time.
Right. So we hope that when we vote, we hope that that doesn't dissuade you from making any of your comments tonight. I mean, would you entertain a motion now? Mark or Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I'll make a motion, that we do not adopt the ordinance as it is written.
In anticipation of a revised
Right.
property maintenance ordinance to come, most likely in June for another
Well,
public hearing.
Whenever it's whenever
Yeah.
it's here. Correct.
Is there a second?
No.
I'll second. Okay. Any comments or questions? Yes, sir.
So it is gonna be rewritten,
Yes.
some of this stuff, right?
Well, we hope you'll stay because in order to do
No,
that,
I mean.
I would hear what people have to say.
I think that's the
Yeah.
big issue last time.
Correct. And like she said, if I may,
yes,
I mean, that's the whole idea of the motion right now. We have to close the loop on what is out there right now.
Right.
Okay, so if we don't adopt it, okay, this goes away, a cleaner version, like I say, with, changes.
Right, I think folks have a little bit of trouble understanding some of the things
Correct.
that's in here.
I mean, we all have lists. I mean, this is my list from the last time. These guys are a lot neater about it, but I mean, believe me, we've heard you and, I think we realize, at least I'll speak for myself, that, we have to sort of simplify it, expand upon, some of the things that we take for granted that, we know XYZ won't happen, but it's not necessarily written in black and white. So that's where we intend to, make revisions.
yes,
So are we making comments on this now or when?
the second, no, the second on this comment is to not adopt this
That's-
ordinance.
right.
And then after that, we can take we can take a vote and we can take public comment.
So you're gonna take the vote on that the ordinance is going to be redone. And then after that, you can make public comment on,
You can make public comment tonight.
yeah,
Yes.
whatever you want to say.
Yes,
You already paid for parking, so you might as well.
But you're not passing this ordinance tonight.
Well, that's the only reason that I didn't want to, that's the only reason I didn't want to second it, because I like to hear what everybody has to say.
Agree.
If we say we're not gonna adopt it and half of you leave, that's gonna be disappointing.
No, I think people came to make
well,
comments.
I think they drove out here.
Hope so.
All right,
See a
so,
crowd.
Yes,
so-
question with you.
yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm curious, what prompted this or who prompted this?
Well, can we vote on this
I
first
wasn't
and then
sure.
take all of the questions?
But why do you have to vote on it without us questioning? I don't get it. Because isn't voting it, making it,
Now,
We're
right
voting,
now,
we are voting to not adopt what is in front of us now.
okay.
And then we can take comments on
Still
the
want
next
comments.
version.
Well, a lot of us weren't here. Can you
Right.
explain what happened?
guys, this is a public
Hey.
meeting.
Person.
I don't think you understood my question.
Okay, now wait a second. So let's try this again. We'll do this one at a time. Would you mind standing at the,
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
curious as to what prompted this whole thing to come about. I mean, there's major changes you're making here. There's people that have lived here their whole lives. I mean, it's gonna be a drastic, problem for a lot of people.
The board doesn't
And-
see it as a drastic problem.
Of course not,
and,
because you're not paying their bills.
For the, no, well, let us answer your question, if we may.
Sure.
So a property maintenance ordinance is pretty common. You can see several versions of them over on the side. And you'll see that they've been around since the nineties or the eighties. A lot of this, and I mean, maybe Judy, you could answer the question of how this particular ordinance brings together a lot of things that already exist in our ordinance and added a few other things. So that zoning can actually enforce what they need to enforce, because with our current zoning ordinance, we cannot clean things up as well as we'd like. I mean, would you care to answer?
Can you give him your example you did at the last meeting regarding the restaurant on?
If I may, in order for this meeting to proceed like it should, one person from the audience can speak at a time as identified by the chair. And to be honest, it isn't a question and answer session, it's public comment. So this, provide your comments to the extent that the board wants to respond or can respond or has questions in response, that's great. But this is public comment. It's an opportunity for you to comment one at a time. It's not gonna work if more than one people are talking at a time, okay? So I believe the chairwoman was asking.
Is answering this man's question, and I think the zoning officer can tell you what the deficiencies were in what we have now. So in other words, other places also have, Milford has it right down a property maintenance ordinance. It's not uncommon, and it helps keep your commercial district tidy, but again, the zoning officer can.
Yeah, there's several reasons to have a property maintenance code. This isn't a matter of, what you would think of in a homeowners association where they might say, you can only paint your house these certain colors, right? This is a health, safety, welfare ordinance for the betterment of the community and the residents. So there's several things that come to our attention in the zoning office that we're not able to address. Landlord-tenant issues where the tenant is living in a property and certain things are happening within that household that we cannot address under our current codes. A lot of landlord-tenant issues that come up, we unfortunately have to say, you will have to go file a civil complaint on your own with the district magistrate against your landlord. That's one example. Another example is property residents who come into our office who said, my neighbor has all this junk in their yard. I mean, I'm sure you can drive around and find some within the township. There's so much junk in their yard. I can't sell my house. The only avenue we have right now in our ordinance is to enforce against that property owner as establishing a junkyard, a G5 use in our schedule of uses, establishing a junkyard in a residential district where it's not permitted. That is a long shot to try to prove that in front of anyone, to say they've established a junkyard. They come in and they say, I haven't established a junkyard. I'm not selling anything. These are my things, right? So, and then a final example would be if you look at commercial properties. There's a high bar to set under the building code to say that a building is unsafe. Essentially, if your building is secure, it is safe. It's in a safe situation. So if we look at an example, which one of the residents here brought up that Ms. Atkinson had brought up at the last meeting, the Four Seasons Diner on Route 209. That building, under the building code, is considered a safe structure, but it is in disrepair to the point where I believe many of us would like to see that building fixed up some, and to a point where, we're not concerned that maybe some metal flashing will fall off, or that it might fall down at some point, right? But under the building code, we can only go but so far. With the property maintenance code, it gives us the ability to address it better. And the way I look at this, we do have a nuisance ordinance in place. We do have a zoning ordinance in place. We do have codes within the township that allow us to do certain things. This kind of brings it together in a comprehensive code that allows us to address these issues in a better way.
Am I allowed to comment on this at all?
Well, we're kind of trying to give everybody a shot at it.
Can I ask a
Could
question?
could you keep it to 3? If each person could, if each person could keep what they have to 3 to 5 minutes, we could answer a lot of questions tonight in an hour or so.
Well, I haven't talked that long, I was listening.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I just, I'm just curious, this is gonna be a financial burden on a lot of people. I mean, who's gonna enforce all this? They're gonna come to everybody's house.
No,
I mean, they couldn't even enforce the recycle bins out here, they disappeared.
Correct.
Now they want everybody to, I don't know what we're supposed to do with our trash, you can't burn, you can't.
I'm glad you brought that up, because the zoning office is complaint driven. If you'd like to explain that.
Yeah, for the most part, we are complaint driven. And so
Okay.
residents call in and they have a concern with something in their neighborhood, or an HOA calls in and has a concern within their community, and they ask for our assistance. And that's how this starts. We're not necessarily patrolling, looking for problems. We don't have time to do
You
that.
have to understand, I've heard a lot of different things, so I'm trying to get the real story.
Yeah. We know.
It's kind of important for everybody to hear the real story, what's going on.
There's a lot of
Thank
Find
misinformation.
it out there.
There's a lot of misinformation.
Yes, and things get blown out of proportion sometimes. I
Yeah.
just want to know the truth, how it really works.
Sure.
You know, part, I know if you got a problem with something, you need to approach them and discuss it.
That would be
If it doesn't,
wonderful. Yeah.
Get resolved there, and then you go to the township.
But a lot of people ask us to talk to their neighbors, and also too, the complaints are prioritized. So
Right.
something that's drastic gets taken care of. If somebody calls to complain about chipmunks, that probably will stay at the bottom of the pile for a very long time. So, so the next one I saw was this young lady in the blue shirt, and then you, sir, in the gray shirt, and then you, sir, in the cap and the striped shirt.
And Annette, somebody on Zoom also has a
Oh, I'm
comment that's been
sorry.
posted also.
Okay, could they be number 4? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sure.
Okay. Yes,
Forgive me
ma'am.
if I'm wrong, but I think you have a motion on the floor
Yes,
about declining
Yes.
the exact motion, and the comments right now should be as whether or not we think we should close this or turn this ordinance down right now. And not our concerns, and I understand the concerns about the ordinance and everything, but right now you're trying to say, we want to decline this ordinance, and that's what you're asking for comments on. And then we can move on to our concerns and comments about Little Smithfield Township and the
or about
community.
the property maintenance ordinance, but I mean, we could take those comments now to keep everyone on track and not confused. You know, so if you have any, we're accepting all comments, and they'll be useful for for the property maintenance 2.0. So, let's see, a number 3,
The gray.
the great, there he is. How are you, sir?
Doing well, should I come up?
Sure, so
Fantastic.
everybody can hear you.
Good evening, and thank you for taking our time today. I completely appreciate the need for a public ordinance that addresses these concerns that you have, and I wanted to really make sure I just sunk my teeth into it, and I printed it out, read it myself. And it states that the need for this is to establish certain minimum health and safety requirements, same as Ms. Acosta stated, for the health and safety of the citizens of this township. And you know what? Hey, I am on board. Health and safety for people, I'm on board. So we go to page 2 and we see definitions. We see enforcement officer, and we see any building official, a few others, and then law enforcement officer is listed specifically. One of the few things specifically listed. So whenever we see enforcement officer, we need to make sure we remind ourselves, cop coming into my home. So then you have 32 different violations, which we'll get to in just a moment, of which that I'm sure they must be egregious, but let's go to penalties. So if I'm found to be in violation of this ordinance.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you like answers to your questions?
I would like to finish my statements, and then you are welcome to respond to anything I have to say.
Alright.
So, if I'm found to be in violation of this ordinance, then I could be found liable of a penalties up to $1,000 plus court costs, which would be tens of thousands of dollars. You could bankrupt people for this. So again, must be very severe. Inspection, section 134-15, the law enforcement officer may enter or may cause to enter onto the premises of any building in this township within 24 hours notice to inspect the interior of a building or structure with 24 hours notice must be made with the owner to secure access there to ascertain if there are violations within this ordinance. So you are saying in this ordinance, and I'm glad to hear that you are going to be tweaking it, I really do appreciate that. But so far, in the one that is publicly written, you are stating that if I refuse entry to a law enforcement officer to my home without a warrant, which in America, I believe is my Fourth Amendment right, that I am now in violation of this ordinance and I can be held penalized with thousands of dollars worth of financial fines by not allowing this law enforcement officer into and onto my property. Again, I completely understand what your intent is here. I wanna, again, agree. We want beautiful townships, we want beautiful neighbors, we want clean neighborhoods. I'm on board. But of these 32 different violations that can justify a law enforcement officer to come onto my property, all premises and exterior must be maintained free from weeds and plant growth of excess of 10 inches. I don't know if you guys know, but Smithfield Township, my backyard is the Delaware State Forest. I guarantee you I'm in violation of this ordinance right now. And Ms. Atkinson, you told me on the phone that your intent is not to use these types of opportunities to take advantage. I believe you. I believe you that the intent is good. I truly do. But the way this is worded, a person years from now that does not have the same intent as you can point to this and use it to force me to either face financial penalty or have to be violated on my Fourth Amendment with no warrant to enter my home. So again, while I believe your intent is good, the road to hell was paved with good intentions, and those who would sacrifice their freedoms in the name of safety deserve neither. Thank you for your time.
I mean, I'll give you a brief response. Some of the things you quoted, we did hear at the last few meetings. But I also want to remind you that, you have to take the whole paragraph as written, not just parts of it. So when you spoke about, coming into your house, at the last sentence says prior arrangements must be made with the owner. As far as your grass, also last sentence shall not include cultivated flowers, gardens, ornamental, tall grass, farm fields, meadows, and wooded lots. So it doesn't apply, as you may seem or to think. Again, if you read the entire paragraph, it clarifies that point. Notwithstanding the fact we're going to simplify this, and I said this at the end of the last meeting, you know, the intention is to go back, simplify it, expand on the definitions, add definitions, and expand on what the process is. So it's not that, you know, they walk up to you and give $1,000 fine.
Well, why don't we have Judy explain that?
I don't think you have to.
What an enforcement officer is. It's not a law enforcement
No,
officer.
but it's written.
Yeah,
It has to be clarified, but that's fine.
yeah. Okay, so, where is the gentleman in the baseball cap and the striped shirt?
Yeah, he kind of bullet pointed a lot of things.
He stole your thunder, did he?
No, not at all. I think he put it eloquently well, probably better than I would. So I appreciate the gesture. What I was gonna say is that it seems like most of this wording is for residential, it's not for like residential, you know, like areas. It's more or less for commercial
Right.
companies, and so why are you bringing it to residential? But I don't understand why, because everything that you guys put in it, it's not for it's not for the house. It's a detriment to us. Because you guys are saying that you're gonna inspect. Anybody can come in and say that there's a fault over there, that another person can say there's not a fault over there. So like anybody feel like we're almost at the mercy of someone else's definition of something that who knows if it's right or wrong, and then now I'm gonna have to like fix something that I have a million other things that I gotta deal with. But it's because my number got called today. I gotta deal with that. I don't think that, honestly, I think that this whole thing should be scrapped, and you guys should be focusing on, like, you guys talking about, like, an eyesore and stuff like that? Over by, where I live in the middle Smithfield, where that whole wooded, what's that, mulch, the compost area? That right there, that dropped our property. Like, we can't sell our house. That right there, you talking about the betterment of us. When you guys are building that, you guys know that would be all the way down. Now it's right by our house, waking me up, 6 o'clock in the morning, they're not supposed to start at 7, and they waking me up Saturday, Sunday, sometimes they wake, like nobody's not supposed to be working. I gotta be up because that, and I don't know if you look around that whole thing is nasty. Listen, you guys not maintaining your own thing, and you're gonna maintain mine? You guys, I think you guys need to clean up your own thing first, before you gotta tell us to go clean anything. And you can, it's trash, when if you look at the buildings that are surrounding you, y'all need to maintain that, man. Before you come inside my house and tell me what to maintain and what to fix, I think it's wrong. I think it's extremely wrong, and I don't know, I think you should just scrap this whole thing, but I know it's not gonna get scrapped, but I don't know, I think this is like, when I read it, it's for, I think it's like a restaurant or like a hotel, like a landlord, like most people, we're not, like, we might be landlords, but we're not in the same category of anything that you guys really are kind of like pointing to. And I know you said that this, that
Complaint.
this is not necessarily, for us, per se, but they can just by the way you guys word it, it's so broad, anybody can really like define that any way they want and really screw the people that don't really have the financial backing that the state has. You guys are the state. You guys are backed. Like, you guys are all backed. We're not. And that's the point. We have other issues. COVID hit us extremely hard. And then now it's another fine. I think it's like almost like another tax. You guys are trying to lump on our head already that we already got too much taxes to begin with. I see this as like another money sucking thing that you guys are trying to start up on honestly. So I'm sorry if I took anybody else's time, but like that's really how I feel about it.
Well, again, this is complaint driven, so your neighbor would have to call and say that they are disturbed by your property, and it would have to be bad enough that the zoning officer would feel that yours is worse than what's on 209, let's say. So that gets.
Coming inside our house, you're saying that now, but a neighbor can't come inside my house.
Well,
Judy,
yeah, let
can
Judy
Judy clarify how many times she's been in a house for zoning ordinance violations?
I'm sorry, this was not in place yet, was this in place?
No, just anything.
No.
Ever.
Well,
No one is going into your house without your, it's written in here. It's written in.
Yeah, I know.
Well, but it's written in there that no one.
But if I refuse entry, then I can be set up in violation of the ordinance and I'm fine. So you say
No, the intent.
Now, wait.
Sure.
We said one at a time. We
The
said
intent-
one at a time.
Let me just clarify,
Wait your turn.
let me just clarify that provision because there's a lot of people
Say that, sorry.
misunderstanding. That provision is specific for inspections. And if by chance, normally the property maintenance code ordinance and the provisions associated with this are gonna be issues or items that the township code enforcement officer is gonna see from the road. To the extent that there is something that is concerning that would require them to go the inside of your house, which I don't know what it would be under the property maintenance code, but to the extent that there is, the code official would reach out to you and try to come up with a time that they could come in. And if you don't agree to it, there are other steps pursuant to law that the township could take if we feel it is that significant of an issue that we want to inspect the inside of your house. But the property maintenance code is more so for the outside of the property. If there's something that somehow goes into the inside, the township is not gonna be barging in your door. They're gonna first ask for permission, and if you don't provide permission, they're gonna consider whether or not if they think it's valid enough that they'll go through the proper courses of law, which maybe is a warrant, I don't know, to see if they can gain that entry. But this ordinance, the majority of these infractions are gonna be things that the code official is gonna see from the road.
The part, I think you're referring to, section 134-15, is that right?
Correct.
That,
And again, you guys-
that entire,
It
can I
doesn't take
finish?
spell ask, spell request, spell ask nicely, it says must. It says must. Your word, not mine.
This entire wording already exists in an ordinance that we already passed in 2017. So how many people have been affected by that? That's in your short-term rental ordinance.
So you pointed another bad law as justification for this bad law?
No, not at all, not at all.
Well, and I can tell you where the zoning officer would maybe come into the situation where they would need to go in your house. Is if the fire department was in and noticed something and mentioned it, If an ambulance corps was in, noticed something and mentioned it, or children and youth was in and noticed something and mentioned it.
Yeah,
And then we'd be in a position possibly where a zoning officer would need to go in.
and again, in order for this to be beneficial tonight, going back and forth is probably not the best course, but just to clarify, sir. You read that last sentence, where it's talking about gaining access. Prior arrangements must be made with the owner or his agent to secure access thereto. If you read that and think about it, sir, that's saying that we need your permission to go into your house. That's how it reads. That's what it means.
The must.
All right, so now, wait a second, there's been a person, the fourth person after the fellow with the striped shirt and baseball cap, so thank you for your comment. The fourth person was on Zoom, so that person is saying, I can't read their name from here. Can you mention which comments are you considering for the new ordinance? What modifications will be made, to name a few, please? So do you remember, Mark or Mike? I mean, we did have a few red lines of making things simpler, like there was one on windows, where windows must be in place to simplify it rather than
Sealed.
have it sealed. Yeah. They just, we're more interested in buildings that are abandoned and dilapidated and people can get into them because they're not secure. So that is an example, if that helps to answer. I don't know if you have any examples. Does that satisfy your question, Ariana? Okay, so there's a lady all the way in the back, and then there's this gentleman in the front seat. Would you mind coming closer so we could hear you?
I have a question. You said this ordinance been in since what, 2016, 2017?
No, there was just one section. There's a wording of the paragraph that a gentleman talked about that has already been in existence.
Okay.
Also too, the fellow in the peach shirt, you had asked, how did this come about? This ordinance that we have before you that is already on the floor to not be adopted so that we can go hear your comments and revise them, comes straight from a model ordinance from Monroe County. So that's where this started from, and a section in that, ma'am, that section was, now other townships have adopted similar property maintenance ordinances that have been in place, some in the 90s, some in the 80s. One that is very nearly this has been in existence since 2003.
So you're saying this is the first time that Little Smithfield is going to adopt this ordinance?
This is the first.
If it goes through, this is the first time?
Yes, this is the first time we've been discussing for adoption a property maintenance ordinance, which this version will not be adopted. I don't mean to speak to the board, but I'm very sure if I was a betting man to say that it wouldn't pass tonight. As far as us talking about it, as part of my housekeeping, if you would just give me a moment. We have been presenting this to the public since 2021. We've been talking about this. We've been making public presentations to the public, which we do as a preview of the upcoming year, a mid-year report to the public, and then all of them go online. And since 2021, we've been saying, we've been wanting to deal with neighborhood blight and rubbish and garbage with a revised ordinance, and to have a property maintenance code to address nuisances such as litter and blight. So we've done that like several times a year. And then we've been advertising this very thing since the end of March.
Okay, so you're saying you have been thinking about it, but you haven't really done anything about it?
No, we've done.
Well, okay, I've been living here for 26 years, and I've seen property up and down the street that looks like hell, excuse me. So why is anything done about it?
Well, that's a perfect segue to Judy as to how this is going to help clean up what you've been seeing. And that's exactly why we're doing this.
Right, if there are concerns with properties that affect you directly as a resident.
Not the eyesore.
Yeah,
Private jail, and then all, and then on the eyesore.
yes,
And if you guys not seeing it,
well,
something's wrong.
so we don't have an ordinance that would address specifically an eyesore possibly. It depends on what we're looking at, right? So I would have to go out and inspect the property specifically, but the way that we've handled property issues in the past and intend to handle them moving forward is not to patrol the neighborhood to find the issues. We've always relied on our residents to alert us to something that's concerning in their neighborhood. And we've also required that it have a direct effect on that neighbor. So we're not taking complaints necessarily where people are driving around Middle Smithfield Township and calling in with all the different properties that they come across that they don't like. Or, affecting, calling out the people that they have a problem within the community, right? It has to have a direct effect on you. So if you're living down the street from a property that has a direct effect on you, certainly contact us and let us know. We'll go out and take a look and see if there's something we can do. But prior to consideration of this ordinance, as I said earlier, we do have certain ordinances available to us, but not enough backing to be able to go forward with those and have those properties cleared up the way they should.
Okay, so if I don't complain on my neighbor, you want to know he has garbage in his yard then?
Right.
Okay, neighbor, you're good, I ain't complaining.
All right, this gentleman in the plaid shirt.
Oh, that's flat, okay.
Oh,
I
I'm
just
sorry.
like, why, okay, that was a good point, like, why make it from commercial to residential? And I do appreciate like how, language has to be precise, makes sense, perfect language. And here, in my opinion, the reason why it needs to go to residential is because we have a problem with abandoned buildings in our community. I brought a PowerPoint and I have like 10 just in Monroe Lake, some on the board there, vice president, but 2008, we had a housing crisis and we haven't recovered from it. We have all of these abandoned houses. Like I have 10 right in my HOA, they're everywhere in the community. And something needs to be done. You're not gonna get permission of the property owners because half the time you don't know who the heck they are, if they're still alive. It's gonna be some research, it's a lot of work. But
Real estate first.
to see all of these houses around, like across the street, there's an unoccupied building. I'm gonna try to sell my house, if people see that unoccupied house across the street from me, which has like a septic, that the stone is removed from, where it should go. There's so many issues, so, looking at the language, the whole police officer, I was kind of surprised by that. But it's just like, you see, houses like, I brought this for them to look at the houses, but you see like this house with the roof collapsing. This house is up in the woods and it's falling apart. This is an old picture because now they have 20 garbage bags and trash everywhere. At least they're cleaning up, right? A lot of the houses and the ones that are problems are the ones that they're not barricaded. Like the broken window, the open door, there's mold in this house. The neighbors are breathing the mold from the house. So, when we get like our HOA, we contact them, we tell them they have to secure it, the windows, the doors. We do the letters, the fines, but it's great if we in the township can work together because we all pay the same taxes. And here it is. Thank you.
Oh,
You're welcome.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And yeah, and you brought up the enforcement officer definition too. And I think, correct me, Mark and Mike, if I'm wrong, but I think under enforcement officer, part of our changes was to cross out everything after building inspector. Which is crossing off law enforcement officer, because to us, the enforcement officer, I believe that one of the corrections for, Adriana was any building official, zoning officer, code enforcement officer, and building inspector, and I think we made a period after that, right? Okay. So now I'm seeing the gentleman in the cap and the blue shirt there. How are you this
Hi,
evening?
how are you? You said before that you won't want anyone's property unless there's a complaint. Now, my property is I have an acre. The reason I bought the property is it's low maintenance. 3/4 of my property is full pine. Nothing's gonna grow there, no matter what you try. I guarantee you got weeds higher than 10 inches. And if I have a neighbor down the street that maintains his lawn like a golf course, doesn't like mine, and he complains, what am I gonna do? Am I supposed to tear all these bull pines down and plant grass for him?
I think that's, would be considered a wooded lot, no? So you're excluded because it said it excludes wooded lots, cultivated gardens, cultivated tall grass. So if you wanted to take, I mean, I practice no mow May, so I am in violation, but if it's cultivated, you would not be. I mean, I don't need to speak for the zoning officer, but
It has to be a reasonable complaint and it has to be a reasonable violation. You know, so, you know, I understand the concerns and the enforcement officer. Right. So this is, you know, this is a short ordinance, believe it or not. You know, I do have a copy of the International Property Maintenance Code, and this is what a lot of communities adopt. This is a book. This is something that the International Code Council has voted on, discussed, changed. It started in 1998, and every 3 years they amend it to either add something, redefine something, or take something away. And this board has decided to go the route of a shorter ordinance, something that's streamlined to the areas of their most concern, which are abandoned buildings, blighted properties, junk items on properties. And, you know, while it does include grass and maintenance like that, the intent for the grass issue is mostly for the commercial corridor, so that we can compel property owners along the commercial corridor to actually mow their properties. You'll see there's some properties that are abandoned, even if you go back to the Four Seasons Diner. You know, I reached out to that property owner in the past and asked him to kindly mow his property, and he has. But I don't have anything in my toolbox to, you know, cause him to mow that property, right? So if you imagine that overgrown. But it has to be a reasonable complaint. Believe me, I deal with unreasonable complaints all the time, and unreasonable complaints do not receive enforcement notices.
all right. Any other comment? Yes, ma'am.
Once, all the changes are adopted, you're saying in June, we're gonna have another meeting and we'll know what can be finalized?
So-
We have 2.0
so-
of it.
So when the board has an amended version of an ordinance that they're ready to proceed with, adopt it, they'll have to advertise it for a public hearing, similar to tonight, before they can formally act and approve the ordinance.
Okay, will any of it include, on my street alone, there's 4 houses that are covered with tops.
Yeah.
They all need new roofs. The house directly next door to me had a tree fall on it right after Hurricane Sandy, which is about 10 years ago. The back half of the house is down. The man is still living in it, has not removed the tree. I don't know how he's living in that house. But nothing is ever done. I call all the time. And I just wanna know when something will be done.
Well, an ordinance like this would give the township the ability to proceed with certain enforcement. If if it's a violation. And it sounds like it is. I don't know your property, the properties you're talking about, but it sounds like it potentially would fall under.
It's a township road. The man is directly next door to me. A huge tree took the back half of his house away during Hurricane Sandy, which is probably 10 years ago. And nothing has been done. The tree is still there. That's how I see it.
So do you want to answer?
Well, I may have spoken with you recently, did we
Yeah.
speak right? So, and I believe in our conversation recently, I said, the board is considering the adoption of a new ordinance, and if you could hold on for just another month or so, hopefully.
Over 10 years.
No, I understand, and so hopefully, something will be adopted that I can use a little bit better to be able to assist you. If not, I'm gonna certainly look at your issues and go with the current code and see if I can do something that way. I'm not going to ignore your concerns, for sure.
Okay.
All right.
A lot of
Uh,
times,
so-
those buildings, like the one up on 209 next to the Hastings house, what was it? You must secure the building. If you drive by that house that's falling down.
Yeah.
Caution tape was what was required.
And that's it.
That's a horrible thing. And if you drive by that, that's just I mean, the owner needs to do something. I understand people can't afford it. COVID took a lot out of us. I understand that. That house on beautiful not beautiful 209, because in that regard, I've had multiple realtors say they try to avoid 209 when they're taking prospective buyers through the township, because they don't want to see what's on 209. That's a shame. We all live here. We should be proud of the place we live. I drive by that every day, and Mrs. Niven, your point about the house, that needs to be fixed. I mean, and maybe we all have to come together and find a way to help the guy get it fixed. I don't know.
I agree.
That might be part of the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, and to your point, I mean, yes, something has to be done and, it's great to have an enforcement tool, but, I think the township, I mean, I've been a supervisor for 12 years. I know that if you came to the township, we would be looking to help them somehow, to fix the roof or what have you. It's not that, we're not gonna kick them out of their house because they have tarp on the roof. I mean, there's gotta be a reason more than, laziness. I mean, so.
All right, so as far as first timers, I'm sorry. I know that you folks want a second bite of the apple, but I saw this lady in the blue shirt, and then there's a gentleman all the way in the back with his hand up. So first this young lady, and then you, sir, with the cap all the way in the back.
First, I want to thank the board. I think you're awesome. And you really have been very
You want to use the
and
microphone?
pointed about, I'm not loud enough.
Can you hear
Can you hear
this
me?
young lady? Can you hear her from there?
You've really been very clear with your answers, and I think that's very good for the people to understand. My name is Patricia Griffin. I've been a resident of Middle Smithfield Township for 81 years. Now, I look at this ordinance, and what I found was that some statements are repetitious. Some of the wording detracts from the intent. I support the intent, but not as this ordinance is written. 4 statements from the ordinance, when applied to my residence, indicate I will be in non-compliance. And yeah, I probably won't be. Some of you have been inside my house already, but I could be for these infractions. 134(6)G, gutters and downspouts shall be maintained in good repair. I have gutters that I have tried to get repaired for 5 years due to an issue of how they were first installed. Oh my gosh.
All right, all right. That happens to all of us. It's a gutter guy. He's in the background.
No one wants to repair. 34(6)(f), all exterior walls shall be free from holes, maintained waterproof. The siding on my house has been there for 30 years. It's compressed wood chips. It deteriorates when it gets wet. It's not waterproof.
Yeah, I don't have to.
I re-sided my garage, which was a small area, and I saved all the siding that was usable. And I replaced the siding on the residence as needed. However, in the last two years, I can't find a carpenter who wants to do it. 134(6)(j). Owner maintained trees trimmed back from the roadway edge at least 2 feet.
Hold on.
Wait, can we?
134(6)(j).
Bottom of page 6.
Okay, so,
Owner maintained trees trimmed back from the roadway edge. Oh, it's 134(7).
that's right, wait a minute, catch up. 134(7).
Page 6.
Okay.
Page 6.
Owner maintained trees trimmed back from the road edge at least 2 feet. I question whose responsibility this is. I do not own the right of way, and the road has been widened to twice its original width since I lived there. There have been more accidents in front of my house in the last 2 years than in my lifetime. The wider the road, the faster they think they can draw it. 134(8)(a). All lots and yards shall be kept free from rodents. There are over 50 animals classified as rodents, including squirrels, beavers, groundhogs, and chipmunks, to name a few. That will be an ongoing expense operation for owners to keep up with. The specific rodents you are referring to need to be listed. If you don't have enough staff to enforce this ordinance, don't pass it. Because if you do, you're making a fool out of the residents who obey the rules. And the ones who have the worst infractions will continue to have properties that are an eyesore, as some have in this township for many years. I'm not going to name anybody in particular because I don't want them coming to my house. But thank you very much. I think you're all wonderful.
Thank you, Pat. So, we're lucky because Mike Dwyer brought his marked up version of what we had intended to change, and much of what you have said is on the block. So that's good, right? Like 134-6F, right, is what you had brought up is being deleted. So 134-6F is deleted. As for your gutters, I have Pinnacle coming next week on Wednesday, if you want me to have them come, a gutter guy coming to look for you, but I am also in violation of G right now. 134-7. Oh wait, 134-8A. On the rodents, we did revise that also, so that it would say when rodents become a public nuisance.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
You're specifically talking about rats, so why don't you just say rats? Or better than that, name for rats.
Right. Well,
Then you'd be very specific.
I think flying squirrels also are a part of that, and as far as an infestation as well as mice. So I don't know. I guess we can argue about what rodents to list. Feral cats is another
That's
issue.
not enough.
Yeah. So, all right, wait, be polite to your neighbors, they're talking. So,
Yeah, I guess the point of that is like a lot of these items here, they don't work maybe alone, but in conjunction with some of the other ones, they do work. And to your point, Pat, I had a resident come to me a couple of years ago about a nest of skunks. You gotta get rid of them, you gotta get rid of them, you gotta get rid of them, well, you can't, you have to have them the exterminator needs to come, and I forget how much it is per head, because the head has to be sent to Harrisburg to look at.
My raccoon in my
And-
chimney for 2 years.
And my point to the person was, eventually those skunks will be big enough to grow and get out of the nest, and they'll move away. They're not gonna all stay in one neighborhood.
Problem.
We live in the woods. We all live in the woods. There's gonna be skunks. I mean, there's gonna be a nest somewhere. Unfortunately, this person saw the nest and was appalled. Somebody needs to remove them. Well, I think let nature do its thing and they'll go on their way.
Okay, so the gentleman in the back with the cap who's been patiently waiting.
Good evening, my name is William Proctor, I own property on Dubai Road. I was an auto restorator for 5 years, and we had a building down, a commercial building down on 209. We used to repair and do classic cars. Well, my brother ended up passing away, unfortunately, and we had to close our business down. So my property is an R3 commercial lot. I put in 2 containers and put all my brother's stuff inside these boxes. I also have a couple of cars that are left that are unfinished, but they all mean something. They're not garbage. They're over 30 years old, which is considered an antique. Now, I have multiple cars on my property that are registered. I have one truck that costs me $424 a year just to register in this town. And I do it every year, get it inspected. It's all, everything's gotta pass, otherwise you get tickets. I bought a car for $500, drove it one day. And I got a ticket for inspection sticker. First time I ever drove it, pulled it out of the garage. They took it for a ride just to see how it was. They pulled me over, gave me a ticket. Went down, I paid my fine, I got out of car inspected, and I gave it to my daughter. Because it just seemed like it was an omen, first time out. But where I'm really going at is your fine start at $500. That's a little extreme. Most of us don't have that kind of money. I had a stroke in 2013. I was totally out. I lost all of my life savings, saving my property, paying my taxes, paying my mortgage, and continuing on and rehabilitating myself. I lost my job for 2 years. All of my life savings completely gone. I mean, you don't know what this is like until it happens to you. And I got a notice from the town. I don't remember when, 2000, I don't know, 18 or 19, I received a notice saying that I was running a class 5 dump truck, which it really wasn't. I was running a restoration. We bought our cars to my property and trying to finish them up. I have one truck left. I've cleaned up a lot. Here's the issue. Have tires. Now, when I moved here 28 years ago, when you guys did a town cleanup, you took all the tires for free. Now you charge us for them. So now the tires come from my own personal vehicles. Tires wear out. I have a tire machine. I change my tires, save a couple of dollars. But now you have tires. So now in order to get rid of them, you gotta pay for them. $6, $7 a piece. That's a lot of money. What do you have for 50 or 60 tires? It's big tire. So now they got up here. And where I'm at is I've cleaned my whole yard up and I have a pile of tires that I can't afford to get rid of right now. So they've been just sitting there and it's an eyesore for me. And I imagine people that drive out of property also see the same thing. But I can't take a $500 fine because I have a pile of tires that I can't get rid of because I can't afford it right now.
I realize, sir, Mr. Proctor, that I realize you weren't here for the last two.
No, I was out of town.
Yeah, no, that's okay. There was a discussion on the fines. I think, Pat, you explained that it.
Yeah, so the language in there is, it comes, I'm fairly certain comes straight from the second class township code. It always references not less than and not more than is the range. And then what would happen is, this is a civil, the township did do this as a civil enforcement, which would mean that eventually this would go before the district magistrate, if it gets to that point. I mean, let's not all forget the process. The process is, if there's a complaint and if the code enforcement officer goes out and they determine there is a violation, you're gonna get a letter. You're not gonna get an enforcement notice. You're gonna get a letter saying, hey, you're in violation, you need to do this, please do it within a certain period of time. If you don't, and if you don't communicate and there's no solution worked out, then is when likely the enforcement notice will come. That's still just an enforcement notice saying you are in violation, except it's more formal. You are in violation, you have 30 days to comply, and if you don't, or if you don't work out again some solution with the township, then the township has the option to file a complaint with the local magistrate. Okay? You'll have your hearing before the magistrate, assuming again, you don't reach out and you don't solve whatever the violation is. And you'll go before the district magistrate, someone from the township will be there, maybe me, maybe not, maybe Judy, and yourself. You'll plead your case to the magistrate, and the magistrate will ultimately issue, if you are found in violation, the magistrate will issue a fine. All right?
If I may, I'm gonna give you the way I understand it, okay? As far as the fine, the $500, $1,000, whatever else says, that doesn't matter. The idea is that the township just wants compliance. Okay, so like in your instance, you said you got a letter in 2019. You didn't get a $500 fine.
No,
Right.
I did reply to the.
And that's what we're asking for. Because when the zoning office gets a phone call, right, when somebody comes in here, as a zoning office gets a phone call, okay, that their neighbor, has shit cars all over the place, whatever the case may be, they have to get some sort of response, okay? Or get some sort of action to get that cleaned up. What Pat's saying is that's ultimately, if you just say, forget it, I'm not gonna comply, I'm not gonna talk to you, then we have to do something. Then we have to go to the magistrate, and then he has or she has to decide what the course of action is.
We've never seen
No.
$500 from the magistrate.
No, and
or
I can tell
$1,000.
you,
We've seen $25.
I just seen it.
yeah, no,
It's nice
right.
to-
But as far as the
Hold on,
fires,
hold on,
we can
hold
talk because,
That's a whole week's pay.
right, agreed, no.
Okay.
As
Let
far
your
as the
neighbor
fires, we can talk for that, because, I mean, as far as the township charging, what we charge is not even close to what we get charged to get rid of.
Yeah, no, listen, I totally
So-
understand. It was great when you took them for free, because it cleaned.
Yeah, but that was
Everybody
supervisors ago, that was,
tires in your yard, so
Yeah.
it's like, I have 4-wheeler tires, I have truck tires, like my
understood,
dump truck, I have car tires.
I understand,
And they're just really tough to get rid of.
absolutely, I understand,
Really are.
totally understand.
So I just want to let you all know that when you drive by my property, you're gonna see the tires, because I cleaned all the trees up, I made my property so like actually you can see in there.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that was the right thing to do. But I did it, I have been cleaning up, so.
Thank
So we
you.
go for it.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Okay, so there's a couple of second timers that have their hands up. Is there anybody who did not get a chance to speak so far that would like to speak or make comment or ask questions? Anybody? Oh, here comes a gentleman. Oh, is there somebody on Zoom also? How do you get rid of rodents outside? We are in the wilderness. Your neighbor has to complain that there is an issue that is a public nuisance, like feral cats colonies. We get that a lot. Or an issue, we had woodchucks, we had skunks, we had snakes under the porch. It has to be an infestation that is of a public nuisance for Helen. Yeah, so, okay, is there anybody that wanted to make a comment that didn't yet, who wants a first bite of the apple? Okay, the second bite of the apple, I saw the gentleman in the striped shirt and then this young lady in the blue shirt.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, after this get revised, and you guys come back with the provision, will it be something that we can vote against, or?
You may come out and make public comment again, just like tonight.
So I'm asking if you can vote against
The board votes, the board votes.
So we don't have no control on you guys.
You have the ability to provide public comment before they take action on any ordinance, and this,
I understand that,
when they, the board votes, the board takes formal action.
so you have no control.
This is not an
Can you
issue.
say yes or no, please?
But it's
This
not
is,
control.
I
You're
am
using
saying
an alternative.
yes or no.
You're both having off the.
You're dancing around my question.
No, no. we're
No,
not.
not, the board votes.
Yeah, so this is,
He's asking, when this is finalized, I was gonna ask the same question. When this is all finalized, will it be put up for vote, so all the residents of the township?
No.
That's the way it works.
It will not.
that's, it is not, this is not something that goes on.
So
Yeah.
they-
Sorry.
Come on.
I'm sorry, one at a time. So this is not the type of thing that goes on the ballot. There are specific questions that can go on the ballot. This is not one of them. Right, does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Anybody? Okay, and then this young lady in the blue shirt,
Okay, so I'm just gonna ask you to clarify something, because you said it, we've never seen a fine at $500. But what you
Right.
said, but you've never had this ordinance in there. So to say we've never seen a fine of $500, once you put it in there, and it just,
but we've had.
But it's in
plenty of
other
other
ordinances, yeah.
Almost every ordinance.
okay, it would be, for those of us who are new,
Yeah.
I should clarify that. Also, if it goes to the judge and it says it has a minimum fine of $500, and I end up in court, does he then have a requirement to charge me that $500?
No,
Even though it says it's a minimal, then what the heck is
Right.
that?
Because
that's
it's in
the
the
second
second
class
class township
township
code.
code.
A lot of that language can take it right out of the second class tax bill.
We
But
have,
ultimately, the issuance of the fine will be by the magistrate. And again, it is not, you don't get, this township does not proceed with an action before a magistrate for a long period. They try to work with the property owner, and not even this ordinance, other words, zoning ordinance, building code, nuisance. They try to work with them for an extended period of time before it even gets to the consideration it files this magistrate.
So then it's something, so this minimum doesn't really mean anything, is what you're saying,
Well, I mean,
because the.
it's in there because it's in the code. Now, what the district magistrate does when there's a hearing, that's somewhat out of our control.
No, if I may, we have to follow the second class township code. That's what the township code tells us to do. Magistrate does not have to follow the second class township code. That's where there's a mix-up.
Okay,
He can make the fine $10,
Correct.
if that's what he sees.
He can tell you to paint your trailer red, and that's happened.
yeah, I met our magistrate, so thank you.
okay, so as far as people for the first time, I saw the lady in the red t-shirt, red shirt, and then this young lady in the red vest. So if you would like to make your comment.
Yeah, I wanna know, you said if you get a complaint from a neighbor, what if the neighbor is filing a complaint to harass you?
Right.
How do you handle that?
Well, that's a perfect question for the zoning officer when she, could you repeat that for her, please?
Okay, you said you get it, if you get a complaint from the neighbor, then you issue a fine or whatever. But what if somebody is issuing a complaint to harass you? So that has happened to me in the past, they complained about something going on my property, and it wasn't true, it was a lie, they just kept issuing it to harass you. What do you do? How do you handle that?
So when a complaint comes into our office, we have to go out and investigate it. Which is part of why we have that section where it says that we can enter a property or observe a property, right? So, and that's, I just want to clarify that section too. That's the outside of the property, not entering the building. We're able to, just like your mailman or Amazon delivery, right? Can walk up your walkway and knock on your door, right? So anything I can see from there is fair game. That's not considered private.
Okay.
So your neighbor complains and I come out to your property and I don't observe a violation, then you're not gonna receive.
So what's gonna happen to the person who keeps filing a complaint? What do you do about them?
Honestly, I mean, I can't file anything like a harassment issue, you have the right to take that on yourself if you'd like. But I receive complaints from people all the time that will complain about their neighbor and I don't take action if it's not a violation. So if I'm hearing the same thing over and over about your property, and I've been out there twice and I've seen nothing, I'm not gonna come out a third or fourth time necessarily, and I might even say that to your neighbor.
All right, so we're approaching the, around about the hour mark that we had set for comments. So if there's any first timers, I encourage you to raise your hand now, because we're about the end of that. This young lady in the red vest.
Okay, you say that we do not have a chance to vote on it. Okay?
Right,
Just you three will be voting on it, is that correct?
yes.
Well, I feel we don't have a chance, because you already are against us, because you created this document. I think it's just being polite to listen to it. I think the majority of us just want to just remove it, don't even vote on it.
Well, and I think
And also, I think, you said every townships are using this, why don't we be a little bit original and just don't even do it? Why do we have to follow everybody else?
okay, so did you want to respond to that as far as how we got? How we got here was by people complaining that they wanted
Well,
something
you
like
said
that.
this, I don't know, do you have it documented, how many people complain?
Well, it's not something that came up out of thin air. We've been talking about this in yearly reviews, previews, and year-end reviews for 2 years or more now. And believe me, there's enough work to do in the township that we don't just dream up things to do. They come from suggestions from people just like you. They suggest over and over. Sometimes they get our ears, sometimes they get all three of our ears, and then we don't discuss, hey, what can we do here to make it better? And the day that I heard the realtor tell me she purposely avoids 209, we know we have an issue on 209. There's nobody in here that can tell me we don't have an issue with 209. There are some nice spots, and there are some spots that you're not really proud to say are part of the township. And if you don't agree, I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. We can ride 209 any day.
So as far as ordinances, I mean, you can check out all the ordinances and resolutions that are on our website. We vote on them. We do this and we vote on them. Not every resolution or every ordinance makes it to a ballot or
We just did one
get-
before this.
Yeah, just before this tonight, you just saw us vote on the alarm ordinance. That wasn't put out for the public to vote on. So it's just part of, so I understand what you're saying, and I sympathize with you, but honestly, if this board had its mind made up already, we would have voted on this on April 6th, when no one but one person was here. So, all right, so is there any first timers? Who did you see? Oh, so a second timer in the back, and then you, sir, in the peach shirt. Did you have something?
I'm sorry, I just have one other question, regarding commercial vehicles. Are they allowed or are they not allowed?
Well, I'll leave that to the zoning officer to answer.
There is a regulation within the ordinance already that we have that allows you to have one commercial vehicle on your property. But it also has to be under a certain weight capacity. So essentially you can't have like a tractor trailer cab parked on your property.
But that's not in here.
But that's not part of this ordinance, but that's already on the books.
So what if you're an R3 property and can you have commercial vehicles on your property, more than one?
An R3
R3.
is a
But
residential.
R3 is commercial residential.
No, R3
Well-
is residential, period.
Yeah.
It is not commercial
When I bought
residential.
my property, they told me it was commercial residential. I've always seen commercial vehicles on this property, always. I've been looking at this property before I bought it for over 20 years.
Yeah, I don't think this ordinance addresses
Yeah.
that question.
Let's try.
The only reason why I say it, I bought the property because it was, I thought it was deemed commercial. They told me I could have a light commercial business, which is what I have.
So I think that we can discuss that maybe offline
Yeah,
outside of this
that's not
meeting, because that's more of a personal property question
Right.
and not in relation to the property maintenance ordinance. Would that be fair?
Fair enough.
Then maybe
Okay.
you could give her your contact information before you leave tonight?
Sure. Yeah, you
Could
can,
you do that?
You
Sure, I
can
can
either
do
give
that.
me contact information or I'll grab a card for you,
All
okay?
right. So we're approaching over the hour mark, so I think this man in the peach shirt will be the last for tonight.
I'm wondering, why wasn't there something sent out to all the residents of the township? So they could be aware of what's going on here? Isn't that, I believe it's a small percentage of residents that is satisfied. I think the majority, it's gonna be a financial burden on a lot. I'm sorry. So some major work either has to be done on it, and I still think that should be put out to all the residents so they can vote on, let's see. You know, you represent us, the residents, tax-paying residents. of
We
the
do.
township. Why can't we, the majority, decide whether this is a good thing or it's a bad?
Well, there's such a thing as a second-class township code that sets forth how the township needs to notify the public, and by public notice, I mean an advertisement in the paper, which advertises a public hearing, which is, I mean, somehow each one of you found out about the meeting. Not only this one, but the last one. So, and the township complies with those requirements whenever it decides to proceed with it. And
What
what
is
is
it
about.
mandatory that the residents don't get to vote on it, that only?
Yes, the second-class township code is very clear who can adopt an ordinance, and that ordinance or those ordinances are adopted by the Board of Supervisors. Okay?
Yeah, so, I mean, anything else? Can we move on? All right,
Well, wait. So seeing there's no more public comment, there is a motion that has been seconded on the floor, and that motion, I believe, was to not adopt the current draft of the ordinance as prepared.
Correct.
correct. Yeah, so there's a motion and a second. We've gone through public comment unless you missed anybody. Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. All right. So we hope to see you again when this is advertised again.
And just for all, our website is brand new.
Excuse me?
Our website was just redone. If you haven't been to it yet, please go and bookmark the Middle Smithfield Township website.
Wait, hold on, hold on. The meeting's not over, folks.
Because I get the same thing in my house. I'll come home and say something to my wife and she'll be like, nobody told me. But we all have a responsibility to read the newsletter, to go to the website. If you want to know, the website has every resolution, every ordinance we've passed for the last, how many years, Michelle? It goes back to 2000, I think.
No, it goes back to 20, back
Everything
to
we've done.
2015.
There's still a lot of people that don't have computers.
All right. Now, wait a
They're not
second.
seniors.
All right, so I'll go through the housekeeping then. Here's what we did to advertise this ordinance. In addition to giving public presentations 3 times a year since 2021 and advertising that and putting that online, talking about this ordinance as a goal for the zoning department, when we got to this point, in order to have the April 6th meeting, we advertised it, as Pat said, we are legally required to advertise this in the newspaper, which we did. And that was on,
Sir.
it was, hold on, let me get through it, Foster, please. So, we published this in the newspaper on the 30th. We also, on March 30th, we also put it on our website on March 27th. And as well as April 5th, we've also posted it on the township doors. We posted it on Facebook on April 6th and twice on April 6th for nearly 1,000 views on it. We posted the public meeting on YouTube. As far as the meeting on April 20th, we also went above and beyond on that. We had that posted on our website. We posted a public notice in the Pocono Record again. We posted at 18 of the HOA message boards. Now, back when we got into office, what we did was we approached each HOA that we knew of and asked them if we could have a piece of their land to put a public message board on that the township bought and paid for and posts notices in, just so that when people go get their mail, they can see things like this. And this is all, by the way, I think against the advice of our solicitor, who says, don't go above, you should stick to what you're legally allowed to do, but we went above and beyond. So when it came to, this meeting, we announced, I mean, and all of these meetings are announced and posted in our minutes online. So there's a variety of ways to find out. And then on top of all of that, each of you received a newsletter at your home. 9,000 newsletters went out with an article about both of these ordinances with a link to our website for you to come see them.
Yeah, a lot of people don't have computers, you can hear me, I guess.
I did hear you, and I did hear you, but you do get the newsletter though, right?
I get it once every, like, 4 months, 3
But you
months.
just got it. You just got it a week ago with this listed in it. And if folks don't have
Sorry,
it,
but I did not.
excuse me, just wait till I'm finished, please. So if you don't have a computer and you received a newsletter about this ordinance, and there was an article in it about the ordinance and you wanted to see it, you have the ability to come to the township and get a copy, go to the Pocono Record and get a copy, or call us. And that's for people
But I
without.
didn't get the news, the newsletter, actually, I think I just got it yesterday, which at the same time I had a gentleman stop by and tell me about this. I knew nothing about it, I've been here a long time ago. But anyway, you know, I'm just letting you know, I don't think it's fair to a lot of the residents that have no idea this is happening.
Well, there's
They're gonna be
no way that
quiet
we
when
can.
it's finalized and all of a sudden they get.
Well, I
There's
mean,
no
this is,
way,
this is
excuse
the
me,
fact.
just one more thing,
Yeah,
Let's
just
do a
one
little
more
more
thing.
effort to notify people.
There is no way that we can advertise by mailing every single ordinance to everyone's home.
No,
How
I'm
are we
not saying
gonna do
every
that?
ordinance, I'm saying,
But where does every ordinance stop? Which ones should we send and which ones shouldn't we?
well, right now, we're focused on.
I mean, you're talking about this one, but what about the ordinance that comes up in 3 months? Should we call you and ask if we should mail it, or should we take a vote in a meeting about whether we should mail it or not? I mean, it
No, I'm talking about
kind
what's going on right
kind
now.
of absurd.
These are a lot of people concerned. These are the ones that found out about it. What about the ones that don't know about it?
Well, these are the ones who found out about it. What I find very interesting is looking at Facebook and Instagram and all that, the misinformation that went out
Right.
there to razzle people up.
Right,
The misinformation that was deliberately posted
right.
on Facebook to get people razzled.
Give you an example of what they
Okay,
said.
you're not recognized.
Give you an example. No, give you an
Take
example.
your seat and behave.
There is no
Behave.
misinformation. Give you an example of what you
The
told us.
gentleman just agreed with me that yes, there was disinformation. That's the only point I was making.
I didn't say that it was this.
Well,
I heard a lot of things.
All right,
I didn't know
all right.
it was- That's like here. Anyway.
All right.
Okay, so yeah, I'm pretty sure the board voted, passed the motion not to take action on the ordinance this evening.
Yeah.
So that was the last public hearing on the agenda this evening. I think you're on to treasury report.
Okay, so I'll make a motion from our general account, $201,067.43.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion from our sewer account, $110,814.82.
I'll second. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
A motion for our golf account, $44,628.01.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, Michael.
Can you take a break for a minute? People are leaving.
Yeah, so we'll take a 5-minute recess so you folks can talk amongst yourselves or leave if you'd like, just so we can proceed with the meeting later for a few minutes.
You don't, that's what you do.
I'm sorry?
You say the amount for the budget for whatever it is, and you don't explain.
Well, if you look at the minutes, the past minutes,
Whole list.
there's a whole bill list of what the bills are. So when you go to the center table and you pick up the minutes, there's a whole list.
Ran out of papers in the front.
Oh.
And I have a question. I bet you have a compost place.
Yeah.
And last time we spoke, you said that you were looking to having a fence, a green.
Yes, that's the ball part.
Yeah, right. Have you advanced on it any place? Because it's really looking pretty bad.
You know where we are. Oh. Thank you for staying. We appreciate it. We forgot to thank the people who had left, who were leaving while we were proceeding, but we'll pick up the meeting now if you don't mind. All right, so, treasurer's report, now we're up to solicitor's report.
Take care, everybody. Safe travels.
Report other than There are some additional items on the agenda that I'll probably have comments on, but nothing else unless there's something from the board of me.
Okay, thank you. Folks, if you could just keep it down to a dull roar so we can continue with this meeting, we'd appreciate it.
Sir.
All right, that's okay, thank you. Engineers report,
Yeah, that's the report.
okay. There's no old business, that brings us to new business. And the first is authorizing the advertising for the public bid notice to receive bids for the pump station. So, did you want to make that motion, Michael? All right, is there a second?
Second.
Comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. That's you.
Make a motion to authorize advertising for seal coat and super pave.
Second.
Comments or questions? All in favor? Aye.
Make a motion that we release fire escrow for 3417 Sky Cloud Drive.
Second.
Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mark, would you like to do the?
Make a motion that we adopt resolution 05-2023-1 and joinder deed resolution for Juanita Miller Buchanan. I believe that one is legal.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And next, we'll make a motion to adopt resolution 05-2023-2 and joinder deed resolution for Christopher J. Bergen. And that one is in Piggle Lake.
Okay.
Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Make a motion that we waive the fee for the park for Lehman Intermediate Track and Field.
I'll second, oh, sorry.
What's that?
I'll second. Any comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
You want to explain that, please, the rental fee, the use of the, are you saying if I, as a resident, I could use that to go a function? Is that what I'm reading?
Sure.
Yes, yes, as a resident, you can call Christopher Rain in Parks
Right.
to reserve a field or a pavilion.
Right.
The rental fee waiver is for 501c3s and nonprofits. So if they want to rent the pavilion, let's say, at Echo Lake Park, there's a fee for that. But if a 501c3 or a nonprofit writes a letter and asks for a waiver, we offer a waiver.
So I'm not a 501c3. How much is the cost for that?
Do you recall?
I think it's $50.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's $50 rental fee, $50 deposit. You get the deposit back as long as everything's cleaned up when the Park and Recreation Liaison goes over and inspects after the event.
And they said, how many hours can I have it for?
Yeah.
No,
You have to check.
You should call Christopher.
He's extension 11559, you're right, 119. So 570-223-8920, extension 115.
Nine.
I keep giving her the sewer department, sorry.
no.
Nine.
Listen to me.
If you dial 115, you wonder why we sent you to the sewer department.
All right.
Okay, all right, so there's been a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and I would make a motion to authorize the Connect Care 3 and the KOA agreement.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and now we're at the part of the meeting where if anyone has any public comment, you may make it. Does anyone have any public comment on anything? No, anybody on Zoom? Oh, it was the lady in the chat. Everyone is not computer savvy. That is like advertising a death. How many people notice deaths in the newspaper? Maybe mail out things to people that have private mailboxes, okay. So the best thing we can do there is mail a newsletter. I can't tell who the name of that resident is. That's the best thing that we can do. We cannot afford to mail out every resolution or ordinance. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just have a question for, Mike. I believe you're in charge of the recycling center.
Yep.
Alright, I don't know if you can imagine living near there, but somebody had said it earlier tonight that it's like living next to an eternal construction zone. Every morning, 7:30 in the morning, banging the steel containers around, throwing stumps in them. I mean, it's like if you have a construction zone right next door.
Right.
Every day of your life. That's never gone away. The guys, when they're moving the equipment around, they take the concrete things, knock them over. The fence is in disrepair because it's been smashed many times. And nobody's doing anything about it.
Well, the fence has been fixed. I don't know if you've been over there with the fence.
No, well, it's not fixed. It
They
looks like-
just fixed, well, then it happened again because they just fixed it a week ago. That's a consortium of Smithfield, Lehman, and Middle Smithfield Township.
Understand.
Every Tuesday is a work day for each township to send guys down there to fix, repair, clean up, whatever the case may be.
Well,
just
we
to
have these
avoid the-
concrete things in the fence, now it's filled up with garbage.
Correct.
all
I
over.
understand that
And
part.
it looks
I
like
understand.
hell. Can you get the screens for the fence?
Yeah,
We all-
I just spoke to the woman that was sitting behind you.
Mrs. Kinney. We
Right.
just talked to her
I just-
Right
about,
next door to them.
about the, yeah.
And it has been ordered. Right, and they have been ordered. And then it may not be this Tuesday coming, but the week after. But they have more screening coming.
And just another comment about the recycling center, is there any reason that it's only open until 2 o'clock?
Well, I mean, that's the standard hours for public works. I mean, even us, Lehman and Smithfield, that's everybody's hours.
Yeah, well, why can't you like put all your equipment down the southern end of it, put a fence up there and leave it open that people can drop stuff off and pick stuff up? All the
Well,
time.
I mean,
It
we
seems
have
like
a
when
fence,
somebody that works for the township wants to use it that afternoon, they
right,
just leave the fence open all night long. And it's
Right,
open
but-
for a couple of days.
right,
You
but
never
we do
know when
like,
it's gonna be.
right, we do have a fence on the far end. So you can't go down below.
Right, and that's what we were under the impression, that's where all that was supposed to take place.
Well, up
You don't
top
have to
is
hear it.
drop off and pickup. Well, you know the whole operations.
Right. Oh, yeah, I don't know if we can get a no Jake break sign for Oak Grove Drive, it's horrendous,
No what?
no Jake breaks.
Oh,
Yeah.
Cause it's the dump trucks and garbage trucks, tractor trailers, whatever. All the way down the hill, you know?
right,
It's not that long of a hill, they can use their brakes.
right. Okay, I will find out.
Um,
like a noise pollution problem.
Yeah, it is, it's horrendous.
Right.
Much louder there.
And now they took all the trees out because of the new highway we were gonna get.
Right.
I'm not kidding.
Right, agreed.
Even with $1 billion, $1 trillion in infrastructure money from the federal government, they're still not gonna do our project.
No.
Why? That doesn't.
I'd be afraid to almost give it back to PennDOT or break the lease with PennDOT right now for fear of what they might do with it. Who knows? Just,
Right,
it's not gonna be the bridge that was supposed to go across.
And like everybody said in the past, we're a one road community.
mhm,
Why can't we have the best one road?
right.
Why does it have to be riddled with potholes and, you know? Can you guys go after PennDOT and or pressure them to take care of the damn road? Now you have all these new commercial things that you're mandating that they widen the road, put a turning lane, so we got a turning lane, not a turning lane, a turning lane, not a turning lane. I mean, what's gonna happen with the rest of it? It's just gonna remain like that, in and out, in and out, in and out.
Wait, oh, you can answer.
I fought with PennDOT since I've been here. I mean, I
I
know,
know PennDOT doesn't give a crap about our area.
that's,
anyway.
I
It's just
believe,
right now.
I've offered to buy the coffee without a lid and take it for a ride, but
25 years ago or more, when they were talking about the bypass, before they even originally started on it, I asked the question, why don't you just make it 3 lanes all the way? And the answer I got was, Mr. Oni, it will be 3 lanes all the way eventually.
correct,
The idea being that the property owners will pay for it.
right,
And
but,
PennDOT's not gonna pay for it.
but they,
But
I
like you
mean,
said,
Or
three
another
lanes,
600
three lanes,
years, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
every time a parcel is sold there, the new development, the occupancy permit, the HOP requires a third lane or turning, whatever you want.
I don't think you're talking about the appearance of our corridor. That's making it look like garbage too. And then you have a sidewalk, no sidewalk, sidewalk, no sidewalk, sidewalk, no sidewalk. It looks like hell.
well, you're hitting like three different subjects, but
Yeah, I know, but I'm just,
let me tell you from the What It's Worth department. I do have, a listing from PennDOT that says that they're bidding out paving of 209 this October,
just a resurface.
correct? And that'll be from,
Next year it'll be back to the way it is now.
yeah, but you know what? I mean, this is like riding a horse. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
so, I mean, at least it's something. Okay, so the intent would be that they would pave it June of next year, I wanna say. You can come back here in July of next year and tell me, Mike, they didn't do it. But that's what I have right now. As far as the sidewalks, I can tell you, I mean, every time there is a new development, we try to get them to do more and more. Tractor Supply, for instance, they've been good about it. Even though they did in front of them, they're gonna, if they can get Med Ed ever to move a pole. So when you talk to PennDOT, have them switch you over to Med Ed. They can move those poles down there, they're gonna extend the sidewalk down to the corner. So that'll be at least a plus. I mean, we can only do so much. We can't go to an existing commercial owner and say, you gotta put sidewalks in. I mean, so,
Well, maybe they shouldn't have done it with the other ones either.
huh?
Maybe they shouldn't have done it with the ones that they're coming in, because it's.
Well,
like
but
600
you can't,
years.
you can't make progress. You can't make progress if you don't make one step. I mean, so, you know, you could do a little bit at a time and, yeah, it takes time, but at least you're making progress. I mean, if you did nothing, you know, then the whole place would look like that Pocono Queen. I mean, so.
And we
you know,
did try multiple times for multimodal.
Right.
Agreed,
We got
right.
next on.
Yeah, I mean, we had it all priced out.
It would have been a bike slash sidewalk.
Correct.
Bike path slash
I think
sidewalk.
it was $6 million
Correct.
to do the whole,
Right.
like, one side.
And that, and you know, 209, it would have went from one side to the other in the course of the township, because a couple of spots you can't.
Right, you can't put
You can't
sidewalks
put a
like
sidewalk,
by
but-
steps and
I
everything.
know, living here my whole life, I would never walk on. Taking your life, so sidewalk or not.
Well, the whole idea is the connectivity between businesses. It's not necessarily to go for a stroll. I mean,
Okay, and
So
then we,
before you adjourn, those of you who stayed the entire time, can't we make that final announcement we should have made earlier?
oh, yeah, well, I was gonna hand out Tractor Supply gift certificates for like $5 each and say they were open now and watch the whole room clear out, but they should be open,
They received their certificate today,
their temporary
certificate of occupancy.
certificate of occupancy today, so they will be open this Saturday.
Soft opening this Saturday, so.
You gave them a temporary seal with you gave them a temporary seal with those pallets of product laying in the parking lot.
Which one?
When I go by this building, there was pallets of yards soil.
Well, they didn't get it till this afternoon, so
Oh, they
maybe
must
it's
have
not.
moved. So I was like stressed over how many parking places there are, and for the grand opening, it's not full.
Yeah, they might be for sale.
And then when I drove by, there was like 4 spaces taken up with pallets of bulks and topsoil. Like, that's not the way it's supposed to work.
Comment from Helene, oh, yeah, she posted, oh, no,
Oh, yeah,
there,
soft opening.
that's James.
It's James.
Good for you, James, soft
Oh,
opening
James.
Saturday, 5:13. Helene, had a comment before, I don't know if you can go back up, something about the roads. I think that was for you, Michael. I think someone from New York and New Jersey moved up here and got a promotion and just started to do cold patching roads, I think. The roads were amazing yesterday. So thank you for your comment. Does anyone else have any further public comment for this evening? At all, anything?
Motion to adjourn.
Agree. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much for coming and thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
So,
I saw that, down on the other way, my way, so you, combine and close it, and then close it.